Welcome to the deep dive. So you've shared some really interesting sources with us lately,
Yeah.
all about problem solving, and maybe even more fascinatingly, how sure we are about our answers.
Hmm.
Today we're really digging into one specific approach called the bird's eye view of Q integration, or BEVOCI for short. It comes from an article in the Educational Psychology Review.
That's right. And our goal, really, for this deep dive is to unpack how all these different factors, the researchers call them cues, shape our confidence when we're, well, tackling a problem.
Okay.
And the really brilliant thing about this BVOCI method is that it helps us understand why we might feel totally certain about an answer, even when maybe it's completely wrong.
Right, that feeling of I've definitely got this
Mhm.
when you actually have it. So to kind of get a grip on this, the article looks at a few different studies.
Yes, a few different types. There are some intervention studies using nonverbal puzzles, things called, let's see, comparison of perimeters and the missing tan task.
Okay, nonverbal.
And then they also did this really smart reanalysis of existing data on how children and adults solve algebra problems.
So it covers different ground then. Visual puzzles and more traditional math problems. Seems pretty thorough.
It does, yeah. It gives a good sense of the scope.
All right, so let's maybe start with the basics. How do we even, judge our own performance when we're solving something?
Well, this whole area falls under metacognition, which is basically thinking about our own thinking.
Right, meta.
Exactly. And a huge part of that is assessing our confidence while we're problem solving. The core idea is that our brain picks up on different, let's call them signals or cues to decide how confident to be.
Like a little clues.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Little clues from the problem itself, or maybe from our own internal state. Things like, does this problem look familiar? Did I answer quickly? Does the wording seem simple? That kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. It's like your brain's doing a constant background check. Seen this before? Check. Felt easy? Check. Must be right. And the article says researchers have already looked into these kinds of signals.
Oh, definitely. Lots of research has identified individual cues that influence confidence. But, and this is key, some of these cues can actually point us in the wrong direction. They can be misleading.
How so?
Well, the article gives the example of familiarity with question terms.
Okay.
So imagine you see a complex math problem, but it uses terminology you recognize from class. That little spark of familiarity might make you feel more confident.
Even if you don't actually know how to do the problem, you just recognize the words?
Precisely. Your confidence gets a boost, but it's not necessarily tied to your actual ability to solve it correctly.
That makes total sense. And it sounds like a lot of the earlier work focused on these kinds of misleading cues, but maybe just one at a time.
Exactly right. Traditionally, researchers might design a study to isolate one specific cue, like familiarity, or maybe how quickly someone answered, which is useful, of course.
Sure, you learn about that one cue.
But in reality, when we're solving problems, we're usually being influenced by a whole cocktail of cues all at once, aren't we?
Yeah, that seems more realistic.
And that's where this BVOCI method, the bird's eye view of cue integration, is, well, it's a really significant step forward. It's the innovative piece here.
Okay, so paint us a picture then.
Hmm.
What makes BEVOCI different? How does it give us this bird's eye view?
Well, instead of isolating cues, BVOCI uses more advanced statistical techniques, specifically hierarchical multiple regression models. Don't worry too much about the name.
Okay, sounds complex.
It is a bit, but the idea is that these models let researchers look at the influence of multiple potential biases or cues all operating at the same time.
So not just one cue, but how a whole bunch of them work together.
Exactly. It's like zooming out. The statistics help tease apart how much each specific factor, like familiarity or problem difficulty or response time, is contributing to both getting the answer right and feeling confident about it.
So you can see which cues are pulling the most weight, so to speak.
Precisely. It shows the relative importance of each cue. And there's another layer, too.
Mm.
BVOCI can also reveal that the influence of these cues isn't fixed. It can actually change
Change based on what?
based on things like the task itself, maybe the instructions given,
Okay.
or even the person solving it. Their background knowledge, for instance, might change how much they rely on certain cues.
Right. So my confidence might be swayed differently than yours, even on the same problem, depending on our experience or maybe even how the question was phrased. It's context dependent.
Very much so. And the article walks through how they tested this. Experiments 1 and 2 use those nonverbal tasks we mentioned earlier.
The comparison of perimeters COP and the missing tan task, MTT.
Yep. The COP likely involved comparing the outside edges of shakes. The MTT, which was a new task they developed, probably involved finding a missing piece to complete a larger shape. Think visual spatial puzzles.
Got it. Less about words, more about seeing patterns in relationships. What did they find using BevoCI with these?
Well, these experiments were great for showing, first, that BevoCI could identify specific biases in these visual tasks, and second, that the influence of those biases could shift based on the experimental conditions.
So you could tweak things, like the instructions maybe, and see how that changed which cues people relied on for their confidence judgment?
Exactly that. They could see if changing the setup made people rely more or less on potentially misleading visual cues.
You know, the article even shows a little piece of the computer code they use for the stats. Something in R.
Ah, yes, the UMM function likely.
Yeah, it looked dense. Mentioned things like serial order, perimeter area congruency, basic shape area, difference in edges, response time.
Right, it shows the level of detail they went into.
Definitely. But you don't need to be a statistician to get the main point, right?
Not at all. The key is that they could mathematically model how all those different puzzle features together predicted not just if someone was right, but also how sure they felt.
Okay. Then they moved on to experiment 3, which was different again. Algebra problems this time.
Yes, and what was clever here is they didn't collect new data. They took existing datasets information already gathered on kids and adults solving algebra and applied the BevoCI analysis to it.
So testing if the method worked on completely different kinds of problems and data.
Precisely. And it did. The results gave, and I quote, strong support for the generalizability of the methodology.
Meaning it's not just a tool for weird visual puzzles in a lab.
Exactly. It suggests these complex interactions between different cues, and our confidence levels are likely happening across various domains, like mathematics, and across different age groups, too.
It seems really versatile then. The article even pointed to a website with more detail on how they coded the algebra problems, suggesting, again, a lot of careful work behind the scenes.
Absolutely. By breaking down the algebra problems into specific features, they could see which mathematical characteristics might be acting as confidence cues, maybe misleadingly sometimes.
Now, here's something I found really interesting. The research suggested that just getting better at solving the problems doesn't automatically fix your confidence judgments. That link isn't always direct.
That's a huge takeaway. It's not so straightforward. They found cases where performance-improved people got more answers right.
Which is good.
Which is good, yes. But the influence of the misleading cues on their confidence didn't necessarily go down in step. People could still be overconfident, relying on those unreliable signals, even as they were technically getting better.
Wow. So you can learn the how-to without learning how to accurately judge how well you know it.
That seems to be the case sometimes, yes. It suggests that improving performance and improving metacognitive accuracy, that self-assessment skill, might be two different things that need addressing.
That's actually quite surprising, isn't it? You'd think they'd go hand in hand.
You would think so, wouldn't you? But this research suggests maybe not always, and that has, well, pretty big implications for education, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which I guess leads to why the article really stresses figuring out what these sources of bias are. Why is pinpointing them so crucial?
Because if you don't know why someone is overconfident or underconfident, if you don't know which specific, maybe unreliable cues they're latching onto, it's hard to help them fix it.
Right.
Knowing the source of the bias is, as the paper says, essential for guiding educational design efforts.
So educators could potentially design lessons or feedback that specifically target those misleading cues, helping students learn to ignore the unreliable signals and focus on, I don't know, more genuine signs of understanding.
That's the goal. It's about fostering not just skilled problem solvers, but also learners who are more self-aware, who can more accurately gauge their own competence.
Okay, so wrapping this up then, this deep dive into the BevoCI methodology really gives us a much richer understanding of confidence in problem solving. It moves beyond simple explanations.
It really does.
Mm.
It lets us see the complex dance between multiple factors influencing how certain we feel, rather than just looking at single influences in isolation. It gives us that big picture view,
And it shows these influences aren't fixed, they can potentially be changed.
which offers hope for interventions, yes.
This has been really fascinating. It makes you think, doesn't it? Considering all these different cues.
Hmm.
Maybe think about an area in your own work or life where your confidence might hinge on something other than, well, pure competence.
Mm-hmm.
And how maybe understanding those specific cues could help you make, I don't know, better judgments or decisions. Definitely food for thought.
It is indeed. That self-reflection, becoming aware of what drives our own feelings of certainty, is probably the crucial first step.
Well, thanks again for sharing the sources and walking through this with me. A really insightful look into metacognition.
My pleasure. Always interesting stuff.
Until the next deep dive.